what if the ultimate symbol of love, looking into someone's eyes and saying, I am yours and you are mine forever, is actually just a socially acceptable form of kidnapping?
Wow. Yeah, that is a wildly uncomfortable thought to start with, but it perfectly captures the absolute demolition of societal norms we are looking at today.
Right.
Because we're exploring a perspective that treats the nuclear family not as a foundation, but, well, as a trap.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive. We are focusing on a fascinating, frankly radical text from June 2007 by an author named Su Feng.
Yeah,
And the title doesn't pull any punches either. It's called If You Don't Want to Get Married, Come to Lifechanyuan.
it really doesn't. Yeah.
But I want to set the stage here.
Sure.
Our mission today isn't to, talk you out of your anniversary plans or convince you to leave your partner.
Right, definitely not.
We are just putting on a pair of deeply alternative glasses, just to see what human society looks like when you completely strip away the romance and tradition of marriage.
Yeah, and we are entirely impartial guides on this journey. We aren't endorsing this. But by treating this text as an intellectual exercise, we can examine a completely different blueprint for human connection.
So to even begin understanding this alternative, we have to look at the baseline definition.
Yes. Because this source argues that marriage, at its core, has nothing to do with love. Like, at all.
Which is wild.
It is. It defines marriage as a product of pure selfishness, driven entirely by the motive to eternally possess another person.
The phrase that jumped out at me immediately was, possession narrows the heart.
Oh, yeah.
Because we dress it up in poetry, we throw expensive parties with, tiered cakes, but fundamentally, the text claims the impulse is just about ownership.
Right.
It is an act of ultimate selfishness disguised as the ultimate sacrifice.
And think about the psychological mechanism there. When you seek to eternally possess someone, you are inherently restricting their potential to be anything other than yours.
Yeah.
The text uses this really vivid, almost brutal metaphor for this. It compares a single person to a free, lively fish swimming in the vast, limitless ocean.
Swimming free.
Right. You have the entire sea to explore, but then society dangles a fishing hook, and the author notes that this hook is, quote, baited with fragrance.
Baited with fragrance. I love that. It's the promise of lifelong companionship, societal approval, the romantic ideal.
Exactly.
You smell the bait, you bite, and the second you are hooked, you are violently dragged out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And you don't get put into another ocean?
No, you do not.
You are dropped into a tiny, stagnant pond to soak for the rest of your life, doing nothing but gazing longingly back at the expansive sea you voluntarily left behind.
The permanence of that image is what makes it so unsettling, I think. The source explicitly points out the asymmetry of the trap.
How so?
Well, it is incredibly easy to take the bait, but agonizingly hard to get off the hook once it is set. You trade boundless potential for a highly confined reality.
I was actually trying to map this onto modern psychology. And it feels remarkably similar to downloading a new app.
Oh, an app.
Yeah, like an app with a gorgeous, beautifully designed interface. You see the marketing, you think, oh, I need this to optimize my life.
Right, right.
But to actually use it, you have to scroll blindly past 80 pages of a terms of service agreement and hit accept. You don't read the fine print.
Nobody reads the fine print.
Exactly. But once you are in, you realize you are locked into a closed ecosystem.
And you're suddenly dealing with background updates you never authorized.
Yes.
The author actually uses similar language describing the individual being drawn into a program called Family.
A program called Family.
Yeah. You are downloaded into the system where the parameters are entirely beyond your control, turning you into a lifelong servant of that specific program.
This is where he brings in some major religious heavyweights to back up the idea that the family program is actually a spiritual glitch.
He does.
But hold on, using figures who literally renounced worldly attachments feels like a pretty extreme baseline for the average person who is just trying to find a roommate they happen to be in love with.
It is an extreme baseline, absolutely, but it serves a specific rhetorical purpose here. The text points out that in the Christian tradition, Jesus states there are no marriages in heaven.
Right.
But it goes further into Eastern philosophy, too, noting that the Buddha had to physically break free from his own family, abandoning the entire structure to reach the Elysium world.
Let's clarify that for a second. The Elysium world. What exactly is he referring to there in this context?
So in Buddhist tradition, an Elysium world, or Pure Land, is essentially a realm of ultimate spiritual bliss. It's free from the suffering and endless cycles of mundane human existence.
Okay.
And you cannot enter it if you are still clinging to earthly attachments. By invoking this, the author is making a structural argument. True spiritual elevation and the traditional family unit are fundamentally incompatible.
So if the core claim is that marriage narrows the heart and limits our spiritual potential, why do we actively seek the hook?
That's the big question.
Why has human civilization marched in lockstep for millennia, treating the pond as the ultimate goal? The text systematically dismantles the primal instincts that drive us toward the altar. Let's start with physical intimacy.
Right. Society generally positions marriage as the morally sanctioned container for sex, but this text completely redefines conventional morality on the spot.
It really does.
It questions what right society or any external institution has to interfere with two consenting adults.
The ethical framework in this document is incredibly streamlined. It basically argues that if an action brings mutual happiness and satisfaction, it is inherently moral.
That is the entire criteria. To this author, introducing a government certificate or a religious vow into a moment of mutual physical joy is an artificial, unnatural restriction.
Or just unnecessary paperwork.
Exactly. The moral standard begins and ends with consent and happiness.
Okay, that tackles the physical aspect. But what about the emotional permanence we seek through children? The whole drive to carry on the family name or pass down our genes. That is a biological imperative, isn't it?
You'd think so, but the author attacks the profound ego behind that specific biological imperative. The text asks a piercing question: why must you insist on raising your own biological offspring?
Right.
Are you trying to monopolize the earth?
Monopolize the earth. That phrase stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
It is such an aggressive way to frame the desire for a biological child.
It exposes the hubris of genetics. We assume our specific DNA sequence is so vital that the future of humanity depends on it.
Wow.
The text connects this right back to the idea of possession. Wanting a miniature version of yourself to outlive you is just the ultimate form of ownership extending beyond the grave.
The alternative presented is pretty beautiful in a collective sense, though.
Yeah, it is.
The suggestion is to consider all children as our own. If you have the urge to nurture, go nurture the children who are already here. You don't need to replicate your own face to pass on love or wisdom.
Which leads directly into the most universal reason people sign the marriage contract: stability.
Stability.
We are terrified of the ocean's unpredictability, so we seek a partner to weather the storm with. We want a predictable future.
Let's pause on that because his counter-argument to stability is undeniably the darkest, sharpest edge of the entire text.
It really is.
He asks if freedom and happiness should be sacrificed for a stable life. And then he concludes, if so, lying in a coffin buried in the ground would be supremely stable.
A supreme stability. It forces a severe reevaluation of what we are actually craving when we ask for stability. We view it as safety and shelter.
Right.
But the author argues that if your ultimate goal is the complete eradication of variables, the total absence of unpredictable change, then a corpse in a coffin is the winner. Nothing will ever disrupt its routine again.
Oh, we actively build our own coffins, don't we?
We do.
We buy the house, we lock in the 30-year mortgage, we establish the identical Sunday routine because we are absolutely terrified of the chaos of living freely.
Life is inherently dynamic and chaotic.
Right.
When you choose the extreme predictability of the family program, you are essentially choosing a comfortable stasis.
Yeah.
You are trading vibrant, chaotic potential for a secure but spiritually lifeless box.
And he doesn't just leave this in the realm of high-minded philosophy. He drives the concept of the coffin straight into the incredibly mundane, everyday reality of domestic life.
Oh, he gets very specific.
Very. If you're listening to this on your commute, think about your daily routine, because the text outlines the burden of details in a way that will make you squirm. You think you are trading your freedom for peace, but he argues you are actually trading it for a lifetime of managing a critical face.
The critical face is such a brilliant distillation of domestic friction. You are trapped with someone's peculiar habits, their bad moods, their unstated expectations. But the claustrophobia extends far beyond just the two of you. The text points out that the moment you vary, your social network artificially and forcefully multiplies.
It is the absolute death of your free time. Suddenly, you have two completely different sets of parents to manage.
Yeah.
You are contractually obligated to give up your weekend to attend a distant cousin's wedding. Then you have to visit an uncle's sister-in-law in the hospital, and it's distant Uncle Lou's funeral.
You are spending your finite energy maintaining human connections that you did not naturally cultivate, purely because the terms of service of the family program demand it.
But the schedule isn't even the worst part. The text describes the married household almost like a surveillance state.
Surveillance state, yes.
Put yourself in this scenario. An old friend, maybe an old flame, calls you on the phone. You haven't spoken in years. You genuinely just want to catch up warmly.
Sure.
But instead, you find your voice dropping an octave. You speak in stiff, unnatural sentences, and you rush them off the phone. Why? Because the critical face is in the next room listening.
That is the microsurveillance that destroys autonomy. The text brings up class reunions as another perfect example.
Oh, reunions.
You attend a reunion, hoping to let loose and reconnect with who you used to be, but your spouse is standing right next to you, so you police your own behavior.
Totally.
You filter your jokes, you manage your body language because you are terrified of causing a misunderstanding that will result in a grueling interrogation on the car ride home.
It even applies to how you manage your own resources. The text highlights that if you want to give your own parents some financial help, you suddenly have to apply for approval from your partner.
Submit a requisition form, basically.
Right. If they deny the application but you do it anyway, you are forced to act like a thief in your own life, constantly checking over your shoulder.
The author warns us not to confuse reality with novels. Marriage isn't composed of sweeping romantic plots. It is constructed from confusing, frustrating details.
Just endless logistics.
In the text's view, the reality inevitably devolves into crying, making a fuss, and in extreme cases, cursing or wielding a knife.
Let me jump in and play devil's advocate here because I know what someone listening right now might be thinking. My marriage isn't like that. We don't wield knives at each other.
Of course.
Isn't the author just highlighting the absolute worst case, most toxic extremes of relationship to make a philosophical point?
It is easy to dismiss the argument if you only focus on the extreme examples like violence. But the core mechanism he is exposing, the structural loss of autonomy, applies universally.
In the good ones.
Even in a deeply loving, incredibly healthy marriage, your autonomy is compromised. You cannot spontaneously quit your job, move to another continent, or empty your savings account to start a weird business without consulting your partner.
Because your life is permanently tethered to theirs.
Exactly. The surveillance might just be the loving gaze of a partner who relies on you, but the author's point is that any gaze that fundamentally alters your natural behavior is a restriction on your freedom.
Wow.
In this paradigm, having to ask permission to be yourself means you are still in the pond.
So let's say you were tracking with all of this. You are looking at the invisible scripts, you recognize the surveillance, and you think, I want the ocean, I don't want the pond.
Okay.
But you have parents, and parents carry the immense weight of generational expectation. They are pressuring you to settle down, buy the house, and produce the grandchildren. Zwething actually maps out a highly specific tactical negotiation for dealing with this exact pressure.
He really does. It begins with a philosophical interrogation of the parents.
Interrogating your parent.
Yes. The text advises you to sit them down respectfully, acknowledging their role in your life, and ask them the fundamental why questions. Why marry? What happens after that? Where do humans go after they die?
You are basically forcing them to look at their own invisible scripts.
Exactly.
If humanity has suffered through these endless cycles of stress and obligation since ancient times, why must I step into the exact same footprints?
By demanding they articulate the deeper meaning behind their pressure, you expose the mechanism of societal momentum. Most parents cannot give a profound philosophical reason. They're just enforcing the default because they themselves were forced into the default.
But the text acknowledges that philosophy doesn't work on everyone.
No, it doesn't.
Some parents will just bypass the existential questions and say, I just want a grandchild, figure it out.
Right.
And when they hit that wall, the author advises you to hand them the bill. You issue the ultimate ultimatum. You make them pay the price.
He argues that if the parents are the ones demanding the creation of the family unit, they must bear the material and emotional cost of that demand.
The invoice.
The literal invoice. They must provide the housing, they must buy the car, they must pay for the wedding.
And he extends this all the way down the timeline.
Oh, yeah.
If they want the grandchild, they must take full responsibility for raising it. If the married couple has friction, the parents have to mediate and resolve it.
They're on the hook.
They have to live long enough to ensure the grandchild gets safely to college and gets married themselves.
It sounds petty on the surface, but it is actually a brilliant exposure of how societal pressure works. You are forcing them to realize they are demanding a conventional family, without being willing to pay the lifelong subscription fee.
That's a great way to put it.
It highlights the absurdity of pressuring someone into a lifelong, soul-altering commitment just to satisfy someone else's desire for normalcy.
But the author isn't just a nihilist telling you to alienate your parents and live in a cave. He actually offers a very structured, tangible alternative to the nuclear family. And this brings us to the title of the text, Lifechanyuan.
Lifechanyuan is presented as the ultimate solution to the anxieties that drive people to marry in the first place. The fear of dying alone, the need for care when sick, the desire for community.
Right.
The author proposes a society made up of 1 million unmarried people, all functioning as one massive collective family.
How does a 1 million-person family even function without immediately collapsing into the same administrative nightmare of the nuclear family?
The premise relies on replacing individual possession with collective care. In this model, if you fall ill, the community cares for you. When you age, the collective supports you.
Oh, wow.
You receive the safety net of a family structure without the claustrophobia of one-on-one possession. The text claims this model mirrors something called the 1,000-year world.
Let's unpack that term quickly, the 1,000-year world.
It is a utopian concept utilized in the text, a state of existence where humans live for incredibly long spans in perfect harmony.
Okay.
In this theoretical era, there is no private ownership, no marriage, and therefore no jealousy or theft. The author claims to have lived in this state, contrasting its incomparable freedom with life on Earth, which he explicitly describes as being like hell due to our isolated, combative small family units.
Here is where I really struggle with the logic, though. There is a massive paradox at the center of this escape plan. The text spends thousands of words begging you to break the fishing line, avoid the suffocating program of the small family, and escape the critical phase. But the ultimate salvation requires you to join a highly structured, ideologically rigid community of 1 million people.
Right.
Is a pond of 1 million fish really the ocean? Or did you just jump into a vastly more complicated, heavily managed aquarium?
That is the critical flaw, or perhaps the inevitable trade-off of his utopia. You are swapping the micro-obligations of a spouse for the macro-obligations of a commune.
Right.
You might not have to check with a husband or wife before spending money, but you are absolutely accountable to the collective ideology of Lifechanyuan. The text states, as long as everyone lives according to Lifechanyuan values.
And there's the new terms of service agreement.
Precisely. You have escaped the surveillance of the individual partner, but you have subjected yourself to the gaze of a 1 million-person community. It is the substitution of one system of rules for another.
It is like deleting a tracking app from your phone, only to realize you just installed an entirely new operating system that monitors everything you do for the greater good.
But even recognizing that paradox, the true value of engaging with a text like this isn't found in whether you actually pack your bags and join a commune.
No.
The value is in the absolute demolition of the default.
The demolition of the default. I love that.
Yeah.
Because it forces us to look at the fragrant bait we interact with every single day. Shufeng strips away the emotional safety blanket of societal norms and demands that we view our major life choices as transactions.
Exactly.
When you commit to the program of family, you are actively trading a degree of your boundless freedom, your ocean, for a perceived sense of stability.
Whether you are deeply and happily married, proudly single, or somewhere navigating the messy middle ground, exposing yourself to radical perspectives clarifies your own values.
It really does.
It forces you to articulate why you are making your choices. It ensures you are actually steering your life rather than just floating downstream on the current of everyone else's expectations.
Which brings us right back to that unforgettable, haunting image at the center of the text's argument. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, built directly from that stark analogy.
That's a heavy one.
The author equated supreme stability to lying quietly in a coffin. Take a hard look at your own life right now. Look at the places, the relationships, the career paths, and the daily routines where you feel the most stable and secure.
Yeah.
Are those areas genuinely providing you with peace and fulfillment? Or are they simply the places where you have surrendered the most freedom just to avoid the terrifying unpredictability of the ocean? Think about it.